Joe presents Boys Don't Cry with me, Russell Kane, together with ASOS. Welcome to Boys Don't Cry with me, Russell Kane, brought to you by Joe, together with our friends at ASOS. Boom, you know I'm wearing that. We've got guests today, I'm really excited. I've got political satirist Jolyon Rubinstein, say Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
It's out of the way now, don't say it again. Radio 1 extra DJ Nick Bright. Heck. Rewind! Radio 1 extra DJ Nick Bright in the house. And TV presenter and fitness guru. She's doing crunches on the table. Look at those abs. It's Chloe Haskell.
No.
Welcome to Boys Don't Cry. Just in case for some reason you're encountering this for the first time, you just jumped straight in a random episode on Series 2, we get some male guests and force them to talk about the things women wished men would talk about. It's compelling for men because they're like, oh my God, let's watch Nick squirm as he tries to answer this. It's compelling for girls because it's the nosy ear at the door they've always dreamed of doing. The only rule is just be honest. It's a safe space, except we probably will still take the piss out of each other a bit, so it's not that. It's almost safe for this.
We definitely will be taking the piss out of each other.
But it's cosy piss. It's matey piss taking. Yeah. It's a safe space.
I mean, it's the third time I've been on, so, you know.
It's because you just open your mouth without thinking, this is why we love you.
Hang on, are we allowed to swear? Because I need to know that now.
Not if it makes you look a cunt.
Okay.
No,
Very good.
No, we are allowed to swear, but not unnecessarily like I just did in a gratuitous fashion.
Simon,
and also by using the C word, we must remember its misogynistic roots and therefore take the power from it. Isn't that right, sisters? No, so we bounce around. It is discursive. It is the thing you've always dreamed of, girls. What do men think of height? What do they really think about a woman's body shape? Why do men watch porn? Why do they cheat? Why do they like your friend's picture on Instagram? Because she's hot. No, but seriously, why? So first of all, Chloe, welcome. You've not been before.
I know. I've been listening to a few episodes on the drive up from Northampton, where I live, and I'm already a big fan, so I'm excited to be here.
So you don't strike me as someone who would struggle to give your opinion on more awkward or challenging topics.
Rude. No, I actually.
That's a good thing.
You know what?
You could kick off. Couldn't you kick off with that as a topic? Isn't it weird how when a girl gets a reputation of being able to speak her mind, it's somehow like sort of got a negative halo.
Yeah.
If I was like, Nick, he says what he thinks, everyone's like, well, yeah, Nick, the man who speaks. And Chloe speaks, I'm like, oh my God, you callous bitch. There is instantly a prejudice there.
Yeah, no, there
We've fallen down
definitely
our first wormhole of masculinity.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. In fact, I sorry, we're just going to jump right off the bat. I've suffered from really bad anxiety since I was a kid, so I've been in therapy forever. And my therapist consistently tells me that I'm way too honest and I need to rein it in and I need to learn how to, quote unquote, play a role. So I don't think this is the show for me to practice that. But
Do you agree with that? I mean,
I do.
I suppose it's a continuum, isn't it? If I'm stood in Tesco's and go, I've got an erection, that's definitely, it's too much.
That is something I would do.
I wish you told me that before last night.
I would play the role of a man who didn't have an erection.
I suppose
Even though it would be quite visible.
there's sort of social norms and niceties that sort of have to be observed just for basic life to continue. Like if everyone you worked with, it's like, you know, when you send an email and you're saying kind regards, when really what you're saying is fuck you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there is a kind of like weird protocol, isn't there, of like this sort of, it's honesty, but couched in a sort of language that we all understand means something completely different to what we're actually saying. It is, isn't it? Utterly.
Do you think, Nick, though, there is a difference between if you had fraternal twins tomorrow, one girl, one boy, both equally outspoken, both equally interesting, both equally intelligent, that girl's going to have a more difficult journey than a guy, would you think?
100%. Not in just what we've been discussing a few moments ago, in other aspects as well. And I think it comes from the parents too, because, you know, I know people that have got sisters, like I've got mates that have got sisters, and they're treated so differently to...
Read the code, Nick.
I'll have a word. They're treated so differently to like their brothers. In other words, you know, the brothers were allowed out later when they were younger, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like if they're seeing girls, the dad's normally like, nice one, son, go and get in there. Whereas like with the daughter, it's like, what do you think you're doing? If he comes around there, I'll slap him up. You know what I mean? It's like all of that. So,
my dad would never say that.
I would love to see it if he did. It'd be amazing.
I'll read some stern texts through the door, teach him about his conduct. Here's a fact sheet.
No, he'd just be really positive about it, I think. He'd just be like, hello, I'm Richard, lovely to meet you. How are you? What are your intentions with my daughter? Have you slept with her? Oh, good. Okay. What are you wearing?
Mid-shag. Hello, I'm Richard.
No, ew, stop. talking.
Have you ever seen This Morning?
I think those norms are changing. You know, those things that we've always considered to be gender norm realities. I've been spending a lot of time doing some research for a new show. A lot to do with sort of looking at the environment and stuff. But actually what I've found a lot of the time is that their attitudes are so opposite to what we have expected. I actually found out an interesting fact while doing
What do you say they? Sorry,
well, I mean,
like
like
other cultures.
No. I mean people who are quote unquote millennials who are you know at an age now where you know they're just about to become one of the if not the largest voter bloc there actually is. You know they're going to be it's going to be a huge force in the next 10 years of seismic change. But in the research, what I found that was really interesting, you know that turn of phrase, stiff upper lip, and the British stiff upper lip.
Very British.
That was actually created in an advertising company.
Are you serious?
And it was used basically to train people at public school and in government to deal with colonialism, because what they were witnessing was so horrific that they were told, oh no, that it's fine because British stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
And it actually was something that Eton and Harrow actually sort of taught future leaders, prime ministers to do. So that sort of like what we considered typically British repression was manufactured.
And it's stiff upper lips, also a fantastic facial clinic in Loughton High Street. They do really good work on your pout, girls. So
a bit too much Botox can
Here
be.
at Stiff Upper Lip, we go for a more natural look. Right, all of these things, lovely warm-up subject, guys. I feel like these are things that girls talk about much better than men, right? So let's try and really put men here under the microscope. I want to talk about breakups.
Oh dear.
Are there differences between the sexes about how we break up, how we deal with it, how we approach a breakup?
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, we've talked, Jolyon, like Nick, I've been on the show a number of times, and we always come back to this, which is the idea that, girls talk more, right? So very fundamental difference where guys maybe will have a WhatsApp and be like, you're right, mate. And the thing also I've noticed in my 30s is, I'm sure, you guys have found this as well, is when you're in your 20s, you kind of have this congregation of people that generally come together Friday, Saturday night. You're right with mates, you're right, mate, don't worry about her, allow her next girl, fucking safe. Now, it's like, brunches and lunches, you don't really have that. And certainly, my last major breakup 2 years ago, I found it much harder to reconstitute that kind of sense of optimism, which we were kind of talking about before.
100%, because much like you, 2 years ago, I went through a big breakup. We were together 4.5 years, and it's like when everybody...
Living together?
So we weren't living together, but we spoke about living together. It's the only reason we didn't is because she's a Scouser and I live in London.
Should never have happened in the first place.
Never move in with the Northerner. Ask Russell. I mean,
I'm a Northerner, thank you.
You are.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah, born and raised in Manchester.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just love greyhounds and stuff. Go on, get me out on those Yorkshire deals.
I do think that Chloe's a very, very typical Northerner.
Yeah, I mean, you and the Gallagher brothers. I mean, I can't tell you about.
My brothers look like the Gallagher brothers. It's very bizarre.
But to try and get back on topic, it's you touched on something there, Jolyon. It was exactly what I was thinking. Girls talk and men just don't, and that's the whole point of this podcast. And when I split up with my girlfriend, I didn't want to tell anyone, not even my parents. I just wanted to keep it to myself for so long, and then I tried to sort out the relationship.
It's embarrassing that it's failed, you mean?
Well, yeah, that.
What's the purpose?
I think it's really interesting you just used that word, failed.
But what is the embarrassment
I think because when you say it's over, it means it's over.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
and that's what it was with me, because we kind of...
Was she in the public eye then?
Yeah, so people know who she is.
That would make it worse because there's people observing the breakdown.
And then everybody where I work.
Who was it? People are only going to Google it.
Yeah, I know. She's a Team GB athlete called Katarina Johnson-Thompson. She just won gold on the weekend.
Wow,
I won't say what I was going to
performance has really gone up there.
It really has as well. That's the thing. It's because she's not having as much sex anymore. That's what it is.
Hey, lay down! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Clip that one out. YouTube drop.
But no, honestly, the hard thing was a lot of people at work, when I go into work and do the radio show, a lot of people had met her because she'd come in. She hadn't been on my show because that'd just be weird, but she'd been in when I'm on air and stuff, just sitting in. So everybody knew who she was, and people were like, "Oh, how's Kat?" For ages, I was like, "Yeah, she's all right." Just kind of not telling anyone.
That's some Bates Motel stuff right there, isn't it?
She's horrible.
Fine. She's upstairs in the loft, just chilling.
and then somehow, I mean, I don't know about you guys because obviously you know, people care if Russell Kane's going through a breakup or whatever. But for me, like, I've never been in the public eye enough for anyone to care about that. And then one day my agent got a phone call from a Daily Mail journalist saying, we found out that Nick and Kat have broke up and we want to write a story about it. And I was like, this is fucking weird, because nobody normally gives a shit. And that was like really, really hard for me to deal with in itself, because I was like, I don't want this to be in the paper. And then she called me thinking that I would, because the paper contacted her agent. So then
a third party had made the story about it.
Someone somewhere had like told this journalist, and then she thought that I hit the mic. She thought that I had told the journalist, and like it was all a bit mad.
What about, Chloe, the process of breaking up? I think there could be a gender difference here, in that men follow the be slightly mean to you until you have a conversation about breaking up model. So I will keep doing really horrible pig behaviour things till you go, why don't we break up then? Yeah, all right. Gone. Rather than, whereas a woman, stop me if I'm making terrible generalisation, might sit you down a few months in advance of that and go, I feel like we're not getting on. We need to have a conversation about this. Is that a stereotype or is it true?
Oh, I don't know, because I only speak to my own experiences.
Give us your experience.
In my experience, that has happened.
Yeah.
Every time a male partner has broken up with me, the prelude to that was months and months of being treated like fucking shit. Like actually being walked all over, until I said, over angry phone calls, we should just break up with them. They're like, okay.
Do you mean like a moodiness, door slamming, not returning texts?
Not coming home, not returning texts. Actually, that's really interesting you said that. That is the first thing that happens. They stop messaging back, like zero interest. It's like, okay. And then if you live together, and I've weirdly lived with all of my ex-boyfriends, they just stop coming home. And it's like, I was just
out. That really is a clue, isn't it?
Yeah. And then when that
Poirot
happens,
would be like, I would like to investigate this further.
he is cheating on you.
He has not returned home for a week. Is there still a chance?
I feel like you do get to and also like things like, I remember one of my exes, my grandma died, and I called him and I was crying and I asked him to come and see me, and he was like, no, I'm going out with the boys. And that's when you know, and you're like, okay, well, we should just break up. And they do say that. Yeah. For me, when I've broken up with partners in the past, I've put it off and put it off and put it off and like try to hide it because you feel guilty. I mean, I've always suffered with really bad breakup guilt. And then you just get to a point where it just like falls out your mouth and you like can't not say it.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think there's another sort of aspect which is very, very different about men and women when they do break up. And numerous, girls who I'm friends with, not girlfriends, but and I have actually had this conversation, which is a lot of guys seem to go through a thing where they'll break up with someone, and then about 6 weeks later, they'll want to get back together.
All the time.
Girls will break up in the first 3 weeks, absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no.
I'm done.
I'm done.
I could, again,
So
couldn't
what is
agree
going
more.
on there, Chloe?
Men love, so women will hold on, in my experience, again, I don't want to generalise like you.
It's all we can do.
It's all we can do.
Do not generalise like Russell. That's the one rule of this podcast.
Is delve into our own experience and use that as a lens to make observations about the world.
So for me, I'm not going to lie, whether I've broken up with someone and I feel guilty or I've been broken up with, I am a nightmare initially. I'm like the girl that gets drunk, that sends 20 texts, like don't care, no shame. And then, there's a definite point where I'm like, oh, it's done and I'm over it. Normally, if I found out they've slept with someone else or whatever, closure, done. Right. And then as soon as that happens, I think men want what they can't have. They know, and then they try and come back.
I think there's something really interesting there, but I'm not sure. I relate to that thing about knowing, wanting what you can't have. But I think there's something actually even more sort of bizarre about the male experience now, which is it's a lot. I think it's really interesting what you said earlier. A breakup, you described what was going on, Nick, as the relationship failed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's examine that. What does failed mean? It means I tried to do something and it didn't work, so that's terrible, rather than we're basically incompatible, right? Like a rationed, reasoned decision where I've worked out that essentially, and I think this happens a lot, like your fundamental values are different. So my mate Jamie, who's got this phrase, and he says for the first 3 months, you're just meeting someone's representative.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And you're kind of like, you find yourself, when I've lived with partners and stuff like that, there are these moments that snap things, like you can't or you can't delete, you can't mute that moment. It's that moment, and you can all try. Do you know what I'm saying? Like those moments.
When I spoke about this, I used to speak about it on stage, and when I think about it, it's like Tetris, love. So it's like, imagine two really complex shapes when you first meet each other. Like, oh my God, everything's going to fit. That bit fits into it. Where have you been my whole life? And it gets closer and closer. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Well, that doesn't... And some of us, we shave the edges off and we gel anyway and we get married to eyelash business owners or rugby players. and we get married. And some of us go, that Tetris wasn't so freaking ideal after all. I've let you off the hook a little bit there, though, Jolyon. You're brave. So I will admit now, while Chloe sat there, that I have done the be mean, hoping the girl sits down and has a conversation.
I will admit it as well.
I'll admit it. I'm interested. I hear what you're saying, Jolyon. It's admirable. You're like, you mustn't use the emotive language of failure. If you get the two test tubes of the relationship and they do not mix, you produce a scientific formula.
It's because I've experienced it.
But when emotions are involved, it does feel like failure.
Bro, it doesn't just feel like failure. It is and I think this speaks a lot to male mental health generally and sense of self-worth. So I really only in the last 6 months, I think, have got back to a place where essentially I have refound my self-respect within relationships. And
that's what you mean when you split up with a girl? Me and Nick, we were bastards until we split up. Done it.
I want to be really clear here. So I wrote a piece about my breakup and I really regretted it. And it's because she didn't have an opportunity to answer back. And I don't think that, I regret doing that. And I wish, in a way, that I'd written it and then just thrown it in the bin, because actually writing it was incredibly cathartic, because actually I processed stuff while I was doing that. So was I mean when we broke up? Yeah, I probably was. But what I'd recognised was I'm an extrovert, she was an introvert.
Not mean when you broke up, mean to cause the breakup. This is what we're talking about. The strategy of passive-aggressive behaviour, staying away from home, doing door slamming, not coming if you've got a bereaving a relative, shit like that, where you're trying to build the pressure so the girl goes, we need to break up. Then you're like, yes.
No, see, I'm much more direct.
Such a dick.
But let's be honest.
I agree.
This is what fucking
I'm really direct, as you have experienced many times in our friendship. I say what I think, but at the same time,
it was a crowded toilet. It didn't stop him.
My God, it's huge. But the issue that I've TV show or radio show, I'm not quite sure. The thing that I definitely regret is not having the bravery and having too much bravado in the situation, not being brave enough to just call it when I saw it, which was a long time before. In fact, even when the day I was moving in. And I think the universe kind of gives you signals. So for instance, they were moving in, I was at a job, there was someone I met who, there was an instant attraction. It was very, very tangible. I wrote it off as being, you know what, that just happens. You meet people you fancy and stuff. But I actually don't think it does happen. Like, I think that sometimes there are such big signals. And for me, you know, I'm 37 now. Most of my friends are married. Most of my friends are married. Most of my friends had kids, right? I really wanted to be in a relationship. Like, I really wanted to be in a relationship. So you have to just stroll through Russell's distractions to make just one point. So I'm very used to it. I'm very used to it.
You are
he just sits there going,
the most beautiful herbal tea. I have to put spoonfuls of honey in it.
Exactly.
People would gulp that down.
It's more like nettle tea. It's hard to drink, but you know it's good for you.
Exactly. Thank you, Jolyon. Nettle tea continue.
The thing that I really, really regret is being too... So my friend has a term for this, which is heteronormative, right? Which is essentially saying 2 kids, married, house, buying a house, stuff like that. My reality has not been like that. And the thing that's been quite missing, and I focused a lot on my career, was that. And my sense of self-worth was very connected to a notionality that I had that would make me fulfilled or happy or full. I was prepared to settle. So essentially, and then when we didn't, and she's got engaged now, she's moved to a different country, and I really wish her well. But it's taken me so long to get to a point to wish her well. Like it really has.
So let's just flip this a little bit, because I've been quite tough on us guys. I have tested the theory once in one of my breakup, and this is the theory we're being told today, guys. If only men would be honest with girls instead of being mean, life would be so much better for everyone.
Is it nothing to do with miming?
Everyone's miming.
I've tested it.
Just quicker. Not nicer, just quicker, right?
I've done it quicker. I've done it quicker, and it wasn't. I was like, okay, let's test this. Blah blah blah. This relationship's not right because of this, and I don't feel like I'm in love with you. It was the worst breakup I've ever had, because it left that girl with the shrapnel of all the truthful things I actually felt lodged in her head.
I think that's bullshit. I think this is the problem with this stuff, is we think, and I speak as one of 3 men here, I should think probably have quite large egos, right? So I've had relationships with guys who was like, oh my God, if
micromanagement.
If I tell her really what I think, if I really, really level with her, she won't be able to take it. It'll break her. That is projection of your own ego
that's
onto a
very
personality
Fair enough.
to say, like, do you know what? She is nothing without me and everything with me. It is fucking bollocks.
You sound like my husband.
I think
Just that latter sentence.
It's partly, though, I think the reason guys say that is because if it was coming back the other way, I think, you know, I wouldn't be able to take it. If somebody turned around and said, this is what's wrong with you, you know, you
Maybe.
tiny dick, you shit in bed, blah, 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 all of these things, I'd be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Size 8 feet.
Should maybe use
it's probably
pretend examples, Nick, rather than...
Listen, I'm getting it out just to prove. Oh my God!
I'm still doing all right, you know.
I slam it home, give me a break.
It's not the size of the boat, it's the motion in the ocean, Russ. You know what I mean?
It is, by the way, here. Yeah.
Exactly, Russ.
Well, I go like a sewing machine in a power surge, so I'm fine.
Lucky
Go and thread that needle, bro. Oh my God.
No, okay, look.
visual image.
That was special.
I'm going to be real with you.
Go on,
as someone
please
who's
do.
very,
Help
very
us.
sensitive and has a painfully honest husband, like to the point where...
What do you mean?
I mean, he's so overly honest with me, even when I don't ask for it, that it kills me sometimes.
Do you mean about the way you're behaving, looking?
Anything and everything.
Really?
Anything and
Really?
everything. And I'm really sensitive, so I'm not the best candidate for that. But here's what I will say. It is just as painful to be lied to and found out later as it is to be told the horrible, savage, honest truth. But if you do the latter, the whole drawn-out, horrible, painful process is over a lot quicker. If someone says, I don't love you anymore, it hurts a lot, but you can't change it.
No.
If it takes 2 months of cheating on somebody, that's 2 months of pain.
No.
Can I just ask
no.
Chloe quickly a question? Because I'm really genuinely interested in this. Do you think that you've got to a point in your life, you know, you're married now and everything like that, where you think that you only have not so many chances for love, but just the capacity to actually fully embrace, like, love again? Do you know what I mean? Like, after a break, because I feel like I've got to a point where it's like, you know, it's like we have a finite amount of energy, right? We live for a finite amount of time. I just keep wondering whether it's like you have a finite amount of, you know, like your actual capacity to be like fully inured, like fully in love with someone, or is it just infinite? You can
I
just meet
think
people.
you feel like that now
Yeah.
because you had a really deep and meaningful, loving relationship,
Yeah.
and you're now single for how many years? 2?
Well, I mean,
3.
there's been stuff that's happened, but I
To
wouldn't
to
describe
measure
those
how long a guy's been single, you
relationships.
check the circumference of his forearm. It's like the age of a tree.
No,
Count
I
the rings
think
on the forearm. 1.
I think you feel
2.
like that, and I think that's subjective to you, and I think that makes all the sense in the world. But I think when you meet someone again, you end up. I mean, James and I didn't fall in love immediately, like I have done in the past, which was really quick. It
Well,
took
I'll ask
time.
you about that in a minute after we can have a little break.
Yeah, it took time, but like everybody says, and it's such a cliche, but it's true. Every love is as powerful, it's just different. So you have yet to find what your next one's going to be like.
Well, even more bizarrely, I actually not sure whether I even think that was love anymore.
Yeah, I feel like
yeah,
that.
because
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder
normal too.
because the thing is, it's like, so I wanted that to be right. Like
Yeah.
I'm basically a romantic idealist, girls. I'm a romantic idealist. I'm a very romantic guy.
He's single.
I'm single, I'm romantic, 37, look
Just
good.
telling you.
Find him on
Basically, the whole
Instagram.
thing is one long Tinder advert for Jolyon.
Yeah.
Are you on Tinder?
No, I was for a little bit. I tell
He's
you
on-
what,
he's
though,
on
someone
Hinge.
sent me a picture of a geezer with my photo going like this, and I was like, "Thanks." And Lee, if you're listening, good
Can
on
I
you,
just
mate.
bring Nick in just one more time because we've got to take a break in a second?
No, how dare you?
So what? Just to finish Chloe's point, she's like the brutal, honest truth, so much better than blah 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 down the line. Yes, of course. I think we're slightly talking at cross purposes. You're a girl. I'm about to split up with you. I can tell you one of two things. I've got to be honest. I don't love you. I'm not attracted to you. Or I could say I don't want to be in a relationship at the moment. I want to be single. I'm the loser. I'm so sorry. It's not you. Now one of those is a lie. And one of them's gonna make you feel less shit.
Yeah.
Be honest, Nick. Which one would you choose? If you were Terminator, the T1000, both options
But what
coming
if
up.
he finds out down the road?
Exactly. I was just about to say the hard thing nowadays.
It's not a fair level playing field.
I'm just throwing it out there.
What about the fact that she then goes along for the next couple of years going, well, then there's still a chance.
Yes,
because actually, I
yes, you
still
need the
love
closure.
him.
But the hard thing nowadays is social
all a
media,
bastard.
right?
Oh my God, totally.
It's you know, you can say that. You can say, oh, you know, I just don't feel like I want to be with someone, blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, Nick Bright's in a relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Facebook official, FBO. It's like, you know, everyone
FBO.
finds out about that shit now, so you can't hide it.
I think we've agreed that brutal honesty wins through. I've tried to be provocative. I do want to find out about the James Haskell train in a minute. I've been told to ask you about that.
Okay.
But we do have to take a quick break in order to pay my exorbitant salary. We'll be back with more Boys Don't Cry in just a moment, but first, here's Alex Payne with something else from Joe.
Thank you very much indeed. It's just a moment or two for us to duck in and tell you about the House of Rugby. We're having a lot of fun. What are we trying to do with the show? Why should people be watching and listening?
We are
Tracy
Bale trying to mix everything up.
This is going into another show so that people come and watch us.
Oh.
Hello, everyone. Say hello to nice people.
Right. Well, we should basically watch House of Rugby because it's unbelievable humour. We don't talk about any rugby, and we give you the inside track from people who are still actually involved in rugby, not old 60-year-olds who don't know anything.
Good. Tins, your views?
Yeah,
You've offended all the Irish. You've offended most of the clubs.
Basically, we try and offend anyone who possibly works against the English. So the Irish have been hit hard. We're just building up to the Welsh, and then we're going to finish off by fucking putting down the Scottish. Yeah, that's
Good
my
stuff.
mother-in-law as well. So
Just want to reiterate, we are a family show, despite the 30-second trail, including. There we go.
No,
You can download us via YouTube. You can as you can tell, we're a very professional outfit. You can watch us via YouTube and download us via iTunes. I hope you'll join us at some point. It's a lot of fun, really.
Thanks very much, Alex. And now a word from our sponsor. We are very lucky now to be sponsored by ASOS. Normally, shows get sponsored by things that don't have anything to do with the host. I can honestly say I would be fully naked, sat here, were it not for ASOS. Even my pants. It's just my wedding ring is the only thing not from ASOS.
And your
Thank you,
fake tan.
ASOS. And my fake tan. Thank you, Jolyon.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I've got stuff I've got to read out, but the God's honest truth is I'm genuine ASOS ambassador. I love the stuff. You can express yourself however you want with clothing that will give you confidence to push the boat out a bit, but not too far. So try something new. You don't have to look like me. If you do, you might want to get counselling. There's some advice on these
Because you're just too
on the
beautiful.
website. If you do look like me or Nick Grimshaw, there are people that can help you.
You and Nick look really different now because he's had a haircut and you've still got the perfect Thunderbird.
Indeed, thank you, Jolyon. Pulling it back after the spray tan jibe. Created by ASOS and starred
God,
by you,
you are
ASOS
beautiful.
Design. Check out the latest pieces on asos.com/men. Right. If I'm proud.
I
to
should
be a
never
spray
have
tanner.
sat in the middle of you two.
I know, I feel really bad.
It's a terrible choice of
I'm
seating.
chilling on the end.
So, when you were first getting together with James, you mentioned it was a particularly stressful and
Yeah.
What's the James Haskell train about?
Okay, so James is a rugby player, which means that his career, his body, his schedule, his everything has to be top of the pile always. Like I will never come first, never have.
To rephrase that? I mean, I know. There's some things, James, maybe you shouldn't put first.
Wow.
Well, anyway, so,
Wow.
Brutal honesty, that's what the podcast is all about, I guess.
anyway.
I'm just going to finish my scrum. I'll finish my scrums in the garden. Well, I'll finish myself off, shall I?
Sewing machine.
Sewing machine's back.
Do your sexual breakdown of what it's like being with a rugby player.
Yeah, do your tackle joke again.
Yeah.
Well, what is it like being flanked by someone who wants to tackle you? I bet you're like, what's foreplay? Like grabs you around the ankles and then you drop down onto the carpet. After sex, does he try and convert you through the duvet?
You through the
How many positions have you tried?
That was good.
Do you know what? I want to give Russell some props here about something else. Right?
Props.
well done.
Come on.
Smash that. So
I
basically,
literally
do you know what? I
didn't
did that.
get
I didn't even think I was about.
I mean, that's the genius we're talking. If he spits bars, he just links, he flows.
So one of the things that Russ was doing a stand-up show, and he said this thing that has always stuck with me, which was about the idea that
Which was,
when
Johnny,
you're
can you
looking
leave your
for a
drunk that
partner,
night?
when you're looking for a partner, you sort of what you think initially is that if you've got common interests, it's like, oh, it's really good. We've got common interests. That's really, really good. But actually, what you said was it's about it's kind of your your disposition, like how you
Temperament.
your temperament
is the most important thing.
and that is something that I think you only really learn about.
30 years old, earliest.
I mean, and even now, I find that, because the older you get, you work stuff out very quickly about people, but people are fucking complex Rubik's Cubes, man. You put them in different positions of life. I've just got these rugby jokes. You put them in different positions and then you tackle them.
But what Chloe's talking about is slightly different because it doesn't matter what temperament James has, he's having to put a third party before you two, right? I know this is not technically
always.
about breakups, but it could have led to an early breakup.
No,
so what's it
I
like
think
playing second fiddle to someone's cardio?
Yeah.
And what was how the Haskell train specific?
What's it like not being in the starting lineup?
So, yeah, nicely. It was hard from day one. I think so. Initially, you're like, oh yeah, I totally get it. I'll never be number one. Like I'll always come second. It's fine. And then like something will happen where that actually comes into like the fore in a very real practical
your
way.
needs come. This happens with stand.
Yeah.
I know it's a much smaller thing, but my
it's
job
not,
is
it's all
such
relative.
it
is much smaller,
as far
though.
as
It's a much smaller
stand-up's a
thing.
little bit more flexible, but it is a very selfish thing.
Yeah.
I'll put it above my daughter and my wife. If the right gig comes in, when we planned our wedding, I said to Lindsay, if the right gig comes in, you know
We'll have
what
to
will
change
happen.
the date. Yeah, so that was the same
And
with
so
us.
sooner or later, you experienced this. The rugby
Yeah.
came up
So,
against
yeah.
your needs, and boom,
And
head
boom.
to head.
And then it keeps happening. And then you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And then you have to ask the question, am I the kind of person, and if you're not, that's totally cool, but am I the kind of person who can do this? And I decided, yeah. But he did say to me when the very first time it came up, and I was like, hang on, wait, I need you. And I won't go into detail what it was for, but it was quite big and it was quite important that I had him there. And he was like, well, no, I can't be there. I've got physio. Literally, that was all it was, physiotherapy. And after that, it spiraled off like a few days of rowing, which is how we go.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around and he said to me, okay, I'm just going to say one thing to you and then I'm going to leave the house. This is the James Haskell train and the train is leaving the station and you're either on it or you're off. So figure it out, and shut the door. And that was it.
Oh my God.
It's all right, Lindsay, you're going to get the Russell Kane train. I mean, it rhymes to
And
me.
it rhymed.
Just to say though, because you just said spirals off into 2 weeks of rowing, right?
Yeah,
so
that's us.
but my parents are still together, and I don't understand people who don't think that rowing is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Because rowing is an absolutely fundamental part of any relationship.
It's how you
is.
create boundaries.
I'm
with
interested
each
how
other.
close, if you're okay to share how close you were to breaking up, because it's quite early on. Did you think, I can't do this?
We
Let's
did
break this?
in the beginning. James and I are both really passionate, loud, opinionated, annoying people.
There's a lot of work in it. Don't
Yeah.
knock it.
I see people on TV, I'm like, oh, that person's really annoying. And then I'm like, I really am not in a position to say that. No, we did break up, twice, I think, in the early days. Let me try and remember why.
And
It's really important to you then.
how was it done? Was it like, well,
No, so
were you
with-
like waving the train off at the station? Like, bye, train.
yeah, fuck you,
See you later.
Train.
Tinder reinstalled.
I'm getting the
I've never
bus.
been on
Fuck
Tinder.
this.
No, it was that as I say, this is the one problem with James and I, and we are a very good couple and we're very well matched. But the one thing we have is that when we argue, it does tend to roll on another train. It does tend to roll on for multiple days at a time. And I think in the beginning it was so frustrating because we never get anywhere. We would just break up and then we'd be broken up for 2 days and then we'd have sex and it would be fine.
That brings me on to my next subject, Mr. Bright, if you'd like to jump in. The
what she
phenomenon,
said.
which I'm assuming everyone around this table has experienced, many people listening and watching, breakup sex.
Oh my God.
What the hell? So I was in one relationship. It was a good. Don't get me wrong. It was a good relationship. It was a proper what I call Ebola love, where you're like, love you so much. I'm gonna be sick of it. Like Ebola love. You don't really get Ebola love in your 20s. It was a full Ebola. It was full like
Ebola love. It's a brilliant
No,
phrase.
like if you go with anyone else, I'll kill myself. It's that sort of level of love.
Yeah.
It ran its course. It was while we were at uni. And, you stopped sleeping together. It's kind of sort of mutual. We were both a bit sad. Boom. The sex life had long died. Within a month of breaking up, this electric sexual affair begins. What the hell is going on there? And refreshingly, it appears to be both a male and female phenomenon.
Yeah.
Nick.
It's weird because with my latest ex, that didn't happen because she moved to France to get away from me. No, she moved to France for training
Well,
purposes.
the courts all actually ordered.
Yeah. It's like, and I was banned from going. No, she moved there for training, so it's like there was no real kind of opportunity for that. Because obviously for that to happen.
But did you feel, without being to pride, did you feel those weird urges of after 3 weeks of breaking up? You feel like, oh, I'd love to just bone the person.
Well,
I just
obviously,
love.
yeah.
But
Like,
it's weird. But don't you find
100%.
that odd? You've just split up.
But
with someone.
I think it's because it's what you've become accustomed to and used to, and you're used to having it on tap, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and then you're thirsty again, and you know.
Do you want to know
want something.
actually what it actually is? Like, and it's like it's.
Here he
this
comes
is a
with his
piece of-
science.
I just wondered,
Nick,
Nick, did you? Because obviously, I definitely do. But Nick, afterwards, did you ever? Because it's difficult when you see someone on TV.
Yeah.
Would you ever like, oh, do you know what? I've had a hard day. I'm just going to put some athletics. Oh my God!
Are you literally going to ask him if he jacked off at his ex-girlfriend
I have
on
to
his
wake myself to
podcast?
sleep again. No, but did you? I will admit, almost every woman I've split up with, just the sight of her afterwards, even if we hated each other during the split up, is arousing. And I don't fully understand it. But when you're there in the public eye, as your ex was, Kate, it must have been 100 times worse.
Yeah,
Did you beat your personal best? 9 seconds.
Very good. It was hard. That's what she said. But
Oh my God, you got lads.
I know,
Just
right?
constant puns. Everyone, you were talking about before. You were like, I mean, it wasn't hard. We didn't. It was hard at first. It was like,
Can you explain it before? I'm sure Jolyon's going to give us the correct scientific explanation, but before he does, what's your explanation of the desire? I don't think it's as simple as it was on tap, because if you do a job for a living where it's easy to meet a female, why am I more attracted to someone I've just split up with and we've rejected each other than I would to some strange female in the street?
I feel like
there's something else going on.
It's because, like, I think Chloe touched on it earlier. When
she did touch on it.
When something is, you can no longer have it anymore. You want it more, first and foremost. But secondly, it's because to meet somebody new, or not always, but a lot of the time it's a bit of a chore. It's like you've got to put in a bit of groundwork. And I always say that ladies are the gatekeepers when it comes to sex. Like, so it might be a bit different.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, Chloe might give a different answer, but like, guys have to put in a bit of groundwork to get laid. Whereas like with an ex, the groundwork is done already. So it's kind of like if you just connect, like if you meet up or whatever and she hasn't had it for a while, you haven't had it for a while, you
obviously had breakups. We've all had breakups. Is there anyone who's not had?
I've had breakups.
See, I admire the honesty of your answer, but that doesn't represent my experience. There was an extra erotic charge to that person. It wasn't based on the ground. I don't have to figure out whether she likes.
But what do you genuinely think it is, bro? I'm genuinely interested.
No idea.
Wait, let me say my theory. Then you hit me with your
I'm
science.
not saying. I don't know why everyone thinks I've got loads of science. I am not a scientist.
You were ready to go.
This is Freud and Jung.
First of all, Chloe, do women have these weird erotic twinges they cannot explain towards a man?
I've slept with all my exes, and it's always been the best sex I've ever had.
Right, what the hell is going on?
Okay, so I think that men need to be needed, and I don't know if it's a father-son thing, but that's it. Yes, I love it if I get this right. Women need to be desired. We need to feel like we're still attractive. So when the guy is like, oh God, it's like, I need you to still need me, you think, oh my God, I'm still desired, and it creates this fundamental visceral reaction, and you want to fuck.
Yeah. But also, okay, so what is it? What's it really?
I'm not gonna lie, that description has turned me on a little bit.
100%. I got a semi. But seriously,
am I alone there?
He's full tilt.
I think we might need the boys. The boys don't cry discussion cushion. Can I have it brought in,
it's
please?
it's about life and death, is what it actually is about. It's about
here
death.
we go.
No, but it's what Freud would say.
You're talking to a comedian here. Be careful.
What does orgasm mean in French?
Life.
Literally,
It normally means I can't go back to that hotel.
I thought it meant life. The antithesis.
Well, no, I mean the thing is that sex by its very nature is primordial. It's basic.
So you're saying an orgasm is a form of death? That's what Freud argued. Isn't it?
So often when you do have breakup sex, there is this moment where you're both utterly silent and you're looking at the ceiling and you both know. It's not sustainable. It's a moment in time. And there's that kind of understanding. It's like that's where the inescapable sadness comes from. There is this kind of moment of kind of it is actually about your internal basic fundamental DNA sort of programming about death and life. And that is the thing that a lot of the time
like
on
a panic mating. When you see what's it called?
Well, they're gone, aren't
Lecking.
they? Yes,
when animals gather and leck in an area.
Yeah.
It's like if you got one season to get it on, a bit like Falaraki, but for antelopes. You gotta get on.
The thing. Do you remember? We talked about this before on the podcast, which was that there's this. If you haven't read any of Yuval Noah Harari's stuff, he wrote a book called *Sapiens*. There's another one,
fantastic.
Out now, Homo Deus and 21.
That was number one for months.
It was, and he talks very, eloquently, but also it's really digestible. If you're not somebody who reads a lot of books, it's really fun to get through. about how we dress up the fact that actually we are basically in our neurology and our basic sort of nervous system hunter-gatherers. We are still basically cavemen, but we dress it up like we're really woke. And I guess this podcast is the expression of like, oh my God, we're so woke, man, middle-class man, like talking about how
I think the question this podcast asks is why are we still so asleep in so many areas, to be honest.
But are we?
Listen,
are we anymore?
Well, everything you're saying, we read the same books, I find it fascinating. But if I am Gary from Milton Keynes, and I'm like, Debbie, like, I know we spoke last week, but you know the way Freudian sex is about extinguishing and
extinguishing the candle of our desires.
Will you touch the end of my belly?
I sound like Gary from Milton Keynes.
Do you know what? I'm going to gamble something here, Chloe. I think the truth falls something between what you two have said and is closer to what Chloe said.
I think what Chloe said is absolutely bang on, by the way. Like, I don't think you can even argue.
You know what Nick was saying about, the groundwork and blah, blah, blah. There is something in when you get together with a new person, you've got to physically discover what everyone's got their quirks about what they like in the bedroom without being graphic. You know which buttons we all have little codes.
And you fantasize what the sex will be like initially, but it never is.
It takes months and months. So all the tuning is done. I know every bit, like the matrix of this woman, but we're still getting the one night stand thrill of being broken up. Could it simply be that we know each other's bodies back to front, but we're like sluts for the night?
But is it a bit like why people have affairs, right? Because I mean, there is something like so wrong about it. That's hot.
Yeah, the thrill.
You know?
It's also like when you have to. It's not that you have to prove yourself because the relationship they know what you're like in bed and you know what they're like. But Chloe said that like when a man when you've been in a relationship for a long time, sometimes you can be a little bit like, I'll take my foot off the gas
routine.
a bit, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like if it's like, right, one night to impress, lads, you're talking to your dick, like, right, listen, son, like, I got to give you the pep talk tonight. We're going ham, mate.
Can't
you know
do the sun crossword on her back this time.
That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Why also the
my
sun
fucking
crossword?
Listen, Gary from
that is a new low.
Gary
That
from
is a
Milton
new
Keynes
low.
has just started listening, and I'm keeping it real for him.
I
Gaz.
would say to Gary, Gary, get in touch with your feminine side. Slap on some Kenny G, maybe go to a Rituals, buy some candles,
All
and then
men
listen
need
to
to
one
do
of
that, by the
Russell's.
way.
No, but I genuinely think that there is a fundamental difference between the way that we process stuff about sex and the way that women process stuff about sex.
Yeah.
Because
that's very controversial these days to say something like that. There's a couple of
it's
books out this
controversial to say
month.
anything, right?
I
Like
agree.
people,
No, I-
it's like saying men and women aren't different.
No,
Why is it then?
It goes. Sorry, what I mean is it goes against the way thinking is going at the moment. Thinking is going more towards no. Conditioning.
I get so frustrated.
Men and women are equal. Women are held back by society and conditioned.
I reckon that the reason that is basically Twitter. Outrage pornography on Twitter. It's like, you can't possibly say it. When I meet anyone in real life, it's so much more of a nuanced conversation. It's just outrage, Twitter, bullshit.
Nick, do you think that men and women fundamentally think differently about sex? No, there's no amount of Germaine Greer's and copies of The Guardian and textbooks can change it. The way women think about sex and breakup and all that is biologically wired different. Are you going to go with that?
Ask me all the big questions. I think so.
Just your experience, that's what we're looking for.
I think so, just based on, conversations I've had with female friends, not, as you said, not girlfriends, just female friends as well. And I touched on it a little bit earlier on. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, women are the gatekeepers to sex. I've got a lot of gay friends, for example, who are just shagging each other left, right and centre because it's two guys and there's none of this kind of... honestly, there's none of this kind of like, you've got to take me out, you've got to do this, you've got to, blah, blah, blah. It's literally just like, we've met, oh, you want to have sex? Bang. Like, that's that. And
this is going to sound kind of controversial, but I'm interested to see what you think. And I think it's undoubted that when you have a connection with someone, you have better sex.
Definitely.
But do you think that women are more prone, shall we say, to... I think it would be much less likely, Whereas men, I think sometimes they just fuck and they're just like, they don't even want to... They don't even want
100%. I'm sorry to jump in, but I've got one female friend who... She gets so many offers, and she's good looking. She's so many offers, but she's not on Tinder. She's not on anything.
I know. I need to look.
But she,
it's Becky 417.
She's in the public eye as well, so I can't say. But she,
well, listen, I'm single and I'm very woke.
She did say to me that she can't have one night stands with guys. So I said to her, do you not have needs? Do you not feel like you just want to have sex? She's like,
She was like, Nick, get dressed, get out of my house.
She said, what she said though is it rings true to what you just said. I can't have one night stands with guys because I can only have sex with a guy if I feel mentally attached to that person.
But no, I do believe your friend, I believe you. But if this is me being provocative, Chloe, as that young lady we're hearing about here, not just been raised in our society so that she's got this self-judgy shit in her head. I refuse to believe a woman isn't capable of going, I want to blow my biscuits tonight.
No.
You'll freaking do.
Listen, hang on. Context is everything.
Yeah.
And what we've done here is we've said, well, are they the same or aren't they the same? It's like, well, hang
Classic
on.
Russell.
Yeah, Russell.
So fucking say it, are they different? And by the way, just so Twitter knows, I'm not saying that all women absolutely categorically think anything. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, direct that at Jolyon, not me, please.
Exactly.
I'm just
Okay, so this is what I truly believe. It's very irritating as a woman to have the opinion forced upon you that you don't love sex as much as men.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's completely wrong. We love it exactly the same. However, I think the context in which we enjoy sex is different, not only for men and women, but for everybody. So for me, I'm not going to lie, the best sex I've ever had has been with a partner. In terms of my mental enjoyment of it, as well as my physical, I think men more often, I don't want to judge or be presumptuous, but from what I've seen, men love promiscuous sex more, I think, than like marital sex or committed sex, monogamous sex. And I think that's because men love the whole thing of the hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
I go, I win, I'm a man, and then they move on.
Yeah.
But women tend to be the opposite. However, do we all love sex as much as each other? 100%, yeah.
But let's
I
just
think we know how this recording's going to finish.
Let's take it back to biological.
An orgy on the table.
Orgy on the table. Huge.
We are at time. Sorry, mate. But no, if you can just briefly on this one, then I'll go to Nick.
Unbelievable.
No, briefly on this one, then I'll go to Nick and we'll wrap.
I just think, go back to what Chloe's saying, right? Okay, so what Chloe was basically saying is also biological necessity for all species, right? Do you see many monogamous species? There are the breeding pairs of animals, but generally...
Catholics and pigeons, Woody Allen said.
Don't bring up the fucking Catholics at the minute, mate. It's not a good idea.
Only Catholics and pigeons made for life.
No, I genuinely think that it's pretty uncontroversial, and if David Attenborough was sitting here, which we would all like him to be,
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
We'd be repping hard with the girls in the
Dave,
office.
how's sex for you?
He'd be like, well, I bought my outfit from ASOS. It's a lovely outfit.
It's my third world.
Serengeti.
At the third world of the night chomps down on my belly.
Can you just do more David Attenborough sex talk, just for fun?
I've been repping so hard on holiday, Mandem split his screw.
Along that bombshell. Look, I just think that we all know that you can't generalise about these things. There are obviously guys who only are interested in connection and women who are randy as fuck and want to bone anything. You know, you can't generalise
Those
at
ladies
all.
more than welcome to tweet us. Nick, last one before we go. Really short answer.
Yeah.
Would you change the way you broke up based on your experience this afternoon talking about this? Has it affected you, anything we said?
It's a really hard question to answer, but I want to answer it quickly for you. Probably, I would talk about it a lot more because I did eventually down the line speak about it with my friends and stuff like that, but it took a little while. I dealt with a lot of it alone and it was really difficult. So what I would do is initiate those conversations earlier.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for listening and watching. Remember, if your man is gone silent, he's behaving weird, he probably is fucking your friend. That's it for Boys Don't Cry this week. Thanks to our friends at ASOS, Jolyon Rubinstein, Nick Bright, Chloe Haskell. Don't forget, we're a podcast and YouTube show. Leave us a review or comment if you like. And if you don't, bugger off. We don't need that kind of negativity in our lives. Right, I'm off for a hand shandy.
Thank you for watching Boys Don't Cry with Russell Kane, brought to you by Joe, together with ASOS.